Eric. All right, call this meeting to order at 7:30, the public meeting. We finished a closed session and we have nothing to report, correct?
That is correct.
Do we need to do another roll call?
No, so you got it. So you've got to close the special meeting now.
I'd like to close the special meeting.
And now you've got to call the regular meeting to order.
And I'm going to call the regular meeting to order. And we do not need a roll call?
I will do a roll call right now.
Okay.
Director Dye.
Here.
Director Blanchard.
Here.
Director Seaton.
Here.
And Director Sukamel.
Here.
And Director Clark is not on. Yep, there you are. Okay, great. All here.
All right. All right. Let's move on.
I'm General Manager Chuck Duffy, and we have District Counsel Bill Park.
Anything else? I'd like to welcome Nicholas Calderon, who is the Director of San Mateo County Parks. He's going to give us an update on the pump track project for Quarry Park. Good.
Barbara, do you want to just make sure there's no comments on items not on the agenda?
Sorry. There's anyone who would like to comment on items not on the agenda? Hearing none. Well, I think that might be Delia.
It is me.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not on camera, but I don't have the app yet.
So hearing none, no comments on items not on the agenda. We will ask Nicholas to give us an update.
Yeah, thank you for having me tonight, and appreciate the opportunity to provide an update. So, unfortunately, as you can imagine, the pump track project was temporarily sidelined due to the outbreak of COVID-19, and so at the commencement of this project, there was a commitment to have that pump track constructed within a year. I think it goes without saying we were most certainly not going to hit that time frame, but we will be getting this constructed as quickly as possible. In fact, it is wholly our intention to commence construction on April 30th, which is the due to the grading, the earliest we would be able to start this project. So April 30th of 2021 is the soonest we can start the project, and that's when we fully anticipate we will commence construction. At the time, what we're really working on is just information gathering. So what that consists of is a site survey for both boundaries and topography. We need to do an assessment of the soil on site, the depth of the water table. And so all of this, when you put together, gives us a full understanding of the project site and what it is that we will need to be doing in order to properly construct the project. We have moved forward, though, with regards to selecting our landscape architect, and project team consists of Gates and Associates, who's very familiar with Quarry Park. They're the firm that's responsible for the draft master plan, which will be rolled out to the public this year. And so Linda Gates and her sub-consultants are very familiar with the site, with how to build a pump track, how to design it, drainage, all of that. So right now we're at the information gathering phase, and once we have all of that, we will be starting the process of developing a series of project alternatives that will be rolled out to the public, so that we can start soliciting feedback and refining those alternatives based on what it is we're hearing. Fortunately, the Coastside Mountain Bikers had already done some polling and some information gathering from their members, so we have a general sense of what it is that some of the community would like to see. Naturally, we want to engage with as many people from the community as we can, and so what we're going to do is take the information gathered from the site surveys and the topo and the geotech investigation. We're going to take a look at what we're hearing from the community to date, both through the coast side, the mountain bikers of the coast side, as well as what we heard when the original pump track was built, and we're going to come up with project alternatives that will eventually be rolled out. We'll go through a refinement process and then refine those project alternatives, roll it out again, and then we'll have our project alternative. We'll need to secure a coastal development permit for this, both for grading and for a change of use in the park. And so we'll have to pursue that. And then from there, we'll go through the process to put this project out to bid and to construct it. I think that the only caveat I'd have to that is if we were to roll out the first series of project alternatives and a vast majority of the community said, we like alternative 1, 2, or 3, right? 80% of the people who we talk with like alternative 2, say, then we would want to look at doing some refinements to 2 and then moving forward with that as quickly as possible. So we definitely want to hear what the community has to say. We want to understand what type of features the community would like in this pump track, and we'd like to make sure that we're going through the necessary design process to make this project something that will last. So we're using dirt, and that's something we need to be aware of from a maintenance perspective. But it also presents a lot of opportunities with how we maintain it and how we sculpt it. So that's really a high level update of the project. I don't have a timeline for you. I had a great conversation with Gates and Associates today, and they're working on a timeline and a task list. So once I have that, we will be able to share that. And naturally, I guess the last thing is, as we move forward, we'll probably end up forming a small technical advisory team that helps kind of shepherd this along. And naturally, we'd love to have someone from the board participate in that process. And then naturally, we also need to talk about finances and what the Granada Community Service District is interested in contributing to this.
Great. Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions?
Nicholas, is the county planning to do a full CEQA initial study just for this project? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Director. So in order to secure a coastal development permit, you have to go through the CEQA process. So we will go through a initial study of this and determine if, well, first we'll see if there's an exemption that we would qualify for. If not, we would go through the mitigated neg deck. I don't really see this project needed in EIR. But yeah, we will go through the CEQA checklist.
So this is not tied into the master plan CEQA process.
Correct. We've broken them out. We knew that the time it would take to get the master plan forward, approved by our board, and then the environmental process done for that, that was going to take far too long and far longer than what we felt was appropriate for this project. So we've divided them out, and while the pump track will remain a part of the master plan, it will also be made clear that we've proceeded with that aside from the master plan.
Thanks.
Any other questions? None. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We like knowing what's happening with the project. This is a project that's been important to a lot of residents of El Granada. Ever since I got involved with parks and GCSD, there's been a very enthusiastic contingent of people who are very excited about this as an option. So thank you for coming and talking to us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll keep on that and pay attention to what's happening. Next is a report on proposed Burnham Park preliminary design and next steps. And there's a couple of things that we want to talk about in that area, but I want to flip the items I sent. There was a agenda memo that I sent of the various things to discuss. And I want to flip it and talk about the 2 items that are related to recommendations from K&K. And we have Tom Conroy from K&K here who's going to talk to us a little bit about thinking about getting environmental consultants on board and getting an engineer on board to help us with some of the initial planning. Tom.
Hi, Barbara. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me back. During last month's presentation, we talked a little bit about what the future timeline is, but at Barbara's request, I want to provide a little bit more information, maybe some clarity to all the directors as well as the community as to what's really going to need to happen in the short term in order to keep the process moving along. Our office is not, we are not experts in CEQA or the Environmental Quality Act or the CEQA process, but we can speak to this process through our experiences as well as our takeaway from recent conversations with county planning staff. There are many qualified CEQA consultants that will be able to provide a lot of support as we go through the environmental review process. And I'll get into that in just a little bit. I don't want to spend too much time on the background here, but the GCSD is really in a kind of a unique position here where they're both the applicant, in this case to the county for the coastal development permit and the use permit and the other discretionary permits, as well as being the lead agency for the CEQA process. And as a lead agency, that means your board gets to certify the completeness of the environmental review. As we continue through the process, we will continue to be in contact with the county regarding how exactly they want us to navigate this process, ultimately for the coastal development permit submittal. But it all has to begin with the board identifying the project, and it's obvious to everybody who's attended any of these meetings, everybody on the board, what the project is broadly. But defining the project specifically is a critical step in creating a defensible and thorough CEQA and coastal development permit review. Defining the project allows the initial study process to continue. I can talk more about that initial study process, but it sounds like you have some level of familiarity with that. And I know both directors and staff have had experience with that. So I don't want to spend too much time on it. But just to remind you that defining the project is really critical so that we can have a targeted and specific review of the 18 or maybe it's 20 now different steps in the CEQA checklist. After we go through that initial study, that whole big document is accomplished through a series of reports prepared by the sub consultants. And now, as the lead agency, the GCSD can issue RFPs for each consultant, like the traffic engineer, the biological study, the cultural resources, geology, all the different things through these 18 levels of review. But the more common process is for the lead agency to issue an RFP for a CEQA consultant to then form their own team and then let them proceed through the process. In our conversations with the county, with county planning staff months ago, they suggested that a mitigated negative declaration was the likely result of the CEQA process, but we can't really assume that's going to be the case, as that assessment and that conversation came out of a pretty preliminary concept plan, and it wasn't based on an initial study. It was just based on their expertise and reviewing the plan. as I mentioned, a clear and complete definition of the proposed scope of work is really critical. If the CEQA process was started on the plan we have now, it would not surprise me to see several of the 18 environmental factors rise to potentially significant, which is not necessarily based on the merits of what we're showing on the plan, but simply due to the lack of detail that's contained in this preliminary landscape plan. I'd note specifically that more detail on potential impact to aesthetics, which is concerned with not how beautiful the project is, but how the project looks from offsite, as well as view impacts. Impacts to biological resources, hydrology and water quality, and probably traffic. Those four things at this point, at the preliminary plan stage, are so vague that it would be hard for a reviewing agency to not assume that there could be potentially significant impacts to those things. And so when the board approves the design direction that we have developed thus far in the preliminary landscape plan that we reviewed last month, we would recommend that the board at the same time approve entering into the next step of the process, which is the schematic design process, because that will lead directly to the coastal development permit submittal, as well as a further defining the project for the CEQA analysis, so the initial study analysis. So the schematic design process, if our current process, like where we were a month ago, can be thought of the 1,000-foot elevation looking down and kind of broadly defining use areas, the schematic design moves us closer to like the 100-foot level, and we're still not at that point where we're choosing park benches or specific plants or paving patterns or play structures. But what we're trying to accomplish in the schematic design is to put a human scale to the project. So long sections through the park would be drafted to identify and avoid impacts to community views, and make sure views are maintained. Enlargements would be drafted for certain areas to ensure universal access and circulation are clear and defined. An initial development of the overall site grading would commence to identify the earthwork quantities and even more critically, a thorough analysis of the existing and adjacent hydrology, especially as it relates to the riparian areas, should occur to ensure that the modifications that we're proposing to the drainage channels and the native plant enhancement areas make sure that it works to improve the environment and the stormwater treatment the way that we've proposed. And for that last item especially, the GCSD already has a great partner with the San Mateo Resource Conservation District, and they have a lot of experience in teams providing exactly this type of analysis. And so furthering that partnership, as well as identifying a project civil engineer to provide additional hydrology analysis on this and the overall site grading is going to be really important moving forward. The current preliminary plan is probably sufficient for the GCSD to engage with a firm to provide a traffic study, because we don't anticipate significant changes to the parking and multimodal circulation path through the park. Little tweaks here and there, but it seems like through our board discussion, the PAC discussion, as well as public comment we've received to date, is that we're in a pretty good place with the parking and circulation that we're showing. Also, I think at this stage, it's probably appropriate and fair for GCSD to engage with a biological team or get the biological resources report taken care of, because it's that's a really broad analysis of the plants and bird and animal life on the site and in the area. And it's possible that findings that are made through a thorough biological resources evaluation may impact the layout of elements on the site. We don't know that yet. The biological resource evaluation doesn't really look at the impacts of the proposed plan on the site. They just take an analysis of what's there, and then we use that analysis to make things appropriately and safely for the plants and animal species on the strip. So the end result of this schematic design phase is a refined master plan that's suitable for the CEQA initial study review, as well as for the submittal to the county for the coastal development permit. And I would think that an RFP for a CEQA consultant to prepare that initial study should probably be issued as soon as or shortly after the board approves the design direction for the preliminary plan, so that the CEQA consultant, because the RFP process takes a while, and then negotiating that the final selection of the consultant takes some time. While that's happening, the schematic design process can continue, and hopefully at the end of the schematic design process, we will have this refined master plan that the CEQA consultant can then use to perform their final initial study and analysis on. And then these two things in parallel become the coastal development permit submittal. And last but not least, additional public input from the board, the Parks Advisory Committee, as well as continued community meetings is going to remain a critical part of a successful project, because public input is part of the process. It's part of the public review. It's part of the environmental analysis. And so I know that's your intention, but I just want to continue to encourage you to keep the public process, or keep the public invested, not just board members.
Thank you very much, Tom. I mean, I think the thing that we agree on, I don't know that we need to have a vote on it, but that we really need to be thinking about putting together an RFP for the consultant going to do the environmental work, and who will work with our sub-consultants, and also a separate RFP for either that or working with our current civil engineer to do the grading analysis and so forth. So I don't think we need to vote to do that tonight, do we, Chuck? Probably not. But I think we need to come to a consensus that we, and K&K will assist us in developing these RFPs. But I think this is the next step of the process. And I think we're ready to move forward with this next step, which is a fairly major step. So it seems like it should come to the board and have discussion and consensus that we need to move forward with the these two major steps. Anyone have questions or concerns that they want to raise about this?
So my only concern is that, I was trying to take notes. There's a ton of studies, surveys, consultants, and ultimately costs that just got rattled off. That my biggest concern is that we could spend all that money and get to a point where the county or Caltrans just derails everything, and we have to start back at square one, because that space that we spent all that engineering money on and on drainage, everything else, wasn't even an option, or they have other options that they have in mind. And so I'm wondering if we could potentially, as we hold off on those things, we could go out, like you said, and start the process of the RFPs and seeking out bids and everything like that. But if we could hold off on actually agreeing to any of those costs while, after the board agrees to a set of plans, if we could print it out, put it in fancy packaging, get it to the county, get it potentially to Caltrans, get as many, you know, whether we spend a couple thousand on printing costs to get full set, you know, renderings, you know, to all the right decision makers. And basically that kind of buys us time to see if we could get them to give us some true, you know, feedback before we have to start shelling out hundreds and thousands of dollars, where ultimately they are going to come in and give us feedback and change everything. So I'm just wondering if we could speed up that process somehow. And like I said, if we could agree on, you know, as a board that, okay, we're good, you know, moving forward with this set, you know, like I said, hit the print button and get that out there and try to get some feedback from them before we start on this expedition of spending, which is eventually going to happen. But I think before we do that, just get bids, do what we can, do our due diligence. Yeah.
I agree. We need to hear back from Caltrans, but we actually already have engaged with the county pretty well. And I think they're one of the ones who said, well, you're going to need traffic study, you're going to need these various studies, which we would do through this consultant. But their preliminary feedback was very positive.
Absolutely. And that's what I was going to say. I think if we could get a set to them and say, hey, before we get too far ahead, because that's where I remember them kind of hinting, saying, hey, we're willing to contribute resources. We're willing to help with the plan. There was even talk of CEQA, you know, potentially them handling that. I think there's so many things on the table. I think before we get too far down our own track, I think we get them the plans, and maybe we could set up a Zoom conference with, you know, whoever was at the last meeting or something, just to really, you know, it seemed to me like there's some really good agreements in principle that got talked about. And I think we could kind of do that round two, maybe, you know, maybe Claudia could coordinate getting them the plans, getting all that. Once they get that, the week after, coordinate, you know, for 2 weeks out or whatever, some Zoom meeting where we could finalize some of the details. Because yeah, to your point, I felt like there was great progress made. And I think if we start running down the rabbit hole on some of these things, they could end up saying, hey, you know, if you just would have came to us earlier, we could have avoided a lot of this. And so I think if we could set up that round two, you know, I think with everything going on, it happened literally on the day that COVID broke our meeting. That next day, everything got shut down. So I think now would be a good time to revisit if we could do a virtual version of.
It's a great idea. Meeting. Keep consulting with the county, and we do need to try to set up with Caltrans. Just so you know, if the county does the CEQA for us, they will hire a consultant and we will pay for it. So they're not offering to pay for our CEQA analysis, and they were pleased when we stepped up and said we would be the lead agency, because they thought that would cut the time about in half that it would take. It would be a lot slower if we do it through the county, just so you know.
And it will save us a lot of money as well. Do we have anything in writing from the county acknowledging that we are and should be the lead agency?
Bill, yeah, and Bill, why don't you speak to that? I don't think we need anything from the county. I think we declare ourselves as lead agency as having final jurisdiction.
Well, you know, the test for a lead agency, there was a couple different criteria in order to be a lead agency, and we really fit that criteria for being a lead agency. It is, we're the project proponent, and we would be the first agency to take any action on the project. So therefore, you know, under CEQA, we are the lead agency.
Bill, I have another question for you, which is, I think you have a lot of environmental law background, correct?
I spend half my day doing it, yes.
So it seems to me that you're a real resource for us in this process. Is that something that you could see yourself, you know, helping to direct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have an extra resource there with helping us navigate. I agree with David completely that we need to talk to Caltrans, because Caltrans could.
But Barbara, can I just provide some feedback? I didn't want to suggest that that the RFP for the CEQA work it has to happen at anytime soon, because that I mean David's absolutely right that that is a big, expensive process. And we really want to make sure that we have all of the potential loose ends, tied, so that, sometimes you go into a secret process in initial study and you think you're going to get one thing and something else comes out of it. And we'd really like to avoid as many surprises as possible. And that's why I would encourage consideration of getting a biological resources evaluation, even before you bring in or send an RFP out for CEQA, because we don't have a good analysis right now of the site. And our office is certainly not qualified to provide a BRE. And I know that RCD provided some. It wasn't a BRE; it was something else.
Yeah.
And I think that if that's going to be one of the primary constraints. What they discover is going to provide some of our primary constraints on the site. And I don't think that process, having a BRE done out there, is going to be prohibitively expensive. And in fact, I think it will make our master plan, and it will make our defined project even stronger once we go into CEQA, if we already know what's going on out there.
So we do an RFP for a biological assessment.
I think that's definitely.
What about the traffic study?
You can do that, but I don't. That can be done at a later date. That can be done now. But I don't think the traffic study has as much potential for site constraint as the BRE may.
Well, I was under the impression that the idea was we were going to get one firm that could do these things, and maybe we get
Well, I think the answer.
Sub these out. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck. That's my CEQA experience. Is someone will control the document and then sub out the specific technical expertise.
Yeah, and it depends on the firm, and Matthew's got a lot of experience in this. Bill does, even Barbara does with her stuff. Yeah, if you get a big enough firm, they'll have everything under the umbrella. I think Dudek at this point in time has that capability, and sometimes they sub stuff out. A lot of times with archaeological stuff and things like that. But certainly, I think we get a consultant on board, and if that's our point, is we do the BRE first and get them on board, because that's going to drive the design, like Tom's saying, in a way more so than any traffic thing or whatever. That that they may say, hey, no, you need a 50 or 100-foot setback off this riparian area, or the riparian area we thought was a riparian area isn't a riparian area. So that may be it. And Bill, we've got tons of experience on this board with Bill, with me. I'm surrounded by 100 of these environmental people. I don't usually like to talk to them, but I will for this.
So there's no real action item for tonight, except sort of agree that we would start working on the RFPs to have them ready. And it sounds as if we need to start going out immediately looking for a biological assessment. I know there are some local people who will do it.
I would suggest that the firm, the name of which I don't remember, that did the BRE for the new fire station, we should think about them, because they've already designated riparian zones in their study area, which covered most of our property. So they have the the maps and data in the can already.
Yeah, I would observe the county's initial study and neg deck for the parallel trail that ends up at the planned parallel trail that ends up at Coronado. I read through that earlier this week, and it covered certainly the Burnham strip wasn't in the project area, but their analysis extended over the entirety of the strip. And I think that was done by WRA, if I remember correctly.
And
So-
we may be using them, Barbara. That's rings. Problem is everyone's got an acronym, but I think we may be using WRA for our Meteor Creek bridge work. I think John.
They're a big and reputable firm who does this in the Bay
Yeah.
Area. I wouldn't be at all surprised.
So is the consensus that we're going to do a biological assessment using WRA or another firm, local firm? And then,
I think we should do an RFP for at least the biological, and then if I'll defer to, Tom will know if there are any other kind of critical path analyses that need to happen. Because my position is, I think we should be talking to the county and to Caltrans, but however they feel about the project, if there's a CEQA issue, it doesn't matter. So we need to figure that out sooner rather than later.
all right, well, so I'm trying to think what would we need to bring back to the next board meeting? Perhaps the selection of if we can do it that fast, or a selection of a consultant to do the biological assessment.
Yeah, let me, if you don't mind, Barbara, let me talk this over with Bill and maybe touch base with Matthew as well, and touch base with my people down here and ask them. I mean, we've done a lot of MNDs for other projects, not necessarily a park, but let me talk to them and see how they would recommend prosecuting, and we keep in touch and figure out what our plan is. But again, it sounds like getting this biological assessment done is, whether it's part of a bigger contract or just the first part of it or whatever, sounds like the way to go.
So could we agree that, because last time we did the first version, we went and took that to the county. Now we have this version. Could we have Claudia coordinate getting that print, both, email it out, and then the hard copy prints at the county, the right decision makers, and also at Caltrans? I think at least start that process. I think it doesn't affect anything else, but maybe we just kind of get their attention and kind of develop any type of feedback sooner from them rather than later. Is anybody opposed to that? To kind of, with the county, they met with us last time, I assume, at the very least, with Caltrans, it might be, kind of a waste, but is anyone opposed to
The
updating
county's
that now?
already seen this plan and indicated, unofficial approval of it pending further analysis. I agree we need to get to Caltrans. I'm part of this.
We emailed this version over to them, the version right now we have? Okay. So,
Wait,
okay. So,
part of our task at this meeting in this agenda item was to set the date for our meeting where we're going to decide on a final plan. It seems as if that's the point where we really start circulating it. So I agree to talk to Caltrans sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we have more than enough, and obviously as part of this environmental plan, they'll be contacting the county and Caltrans sooner rather than later, obviously, and that's kind of what you hire these people to do.
yeah. And my only advice, like I said, I think emails are so, thousands a day. I think if we could do the full set of prints on a fancy packaging that Claudia could come out with or whatever, just kind of get their attention. I think at Caltrans, along with that email, I think it just allows them to pull it out and just kind of associate a little bit more with than just an email coming across their desk, which is just another email. So I would say if we approve that cost to print out the full sets and get them, I think otherwise it is so hard to look on your computer and whatever. I'm sure, it just makes it that much easier to coordinate where we ship it out and then, ship it out on like a Friday and then send them the email Monday. And then it's kind of like their full attention as best as we can do. So
David, are you suggesting doing that before the biological resources study?
I think so, because I think then we could move forward with that, and they're going to take so long to get back to us. I mean, things are just like we met with the county and things have changed and they're going to change again, but it's just kind of updating them to say, hey, this is where we're at right now. I think we did the same with the county already. I would say we do the same thing with the county, send them the hard copy set of prints just because it makes us that much, more certain that they're going to spread it out that day and put a, half an hour of time into it. And so I think that I would say at this point, if we all as a board agree that we're okay, then I think if we could, somebody like Claudia would be perfect to kind of just go on a little campaign in terms of, whether they want to do a Zoom meeting or whatever, they just, at least we know they put in the time.
I think Tom has said that it's essential that they get the biological information before they do another set, more drawings, right, Tom?
I think, I think before we get to the master plan stage, I think that's really critical.
But I think Barbara just said that we sent them the plans already, the latest rendering again.
Yeah, so about, I think, I'm trying to remember now, a week or two before your last board meeting, when we presented the current plan, we had a Zoom call with the county. It was with Steve Monowitz, the planning director, as well as the Connect the Coast team. And we did that so that we wanted to make sure that, because we were coming up to presenting this to your board, we wanted to make sure that we, because things had changed, especially with those drainage areas, that we weren't, going outside of what they had expected and already understood. And they had no red flags for us. They saw the plan that you've seen. They had no concerns. They did. It was during that conversation is when they clarified their the Connect the Coast and the county's work on finding additional parking, specific beach parking, and I think Barbara, correct? You were at the meeting, right, Barbara? You were on that call too.
It was
at the time,
post meeting that the county was at.
So, okay, I'm a little confused because Matthew asked you a question and you answered it that we shouldn't be sending them anything. Should we or shouldn't we be sending them the latest versions?
Not the county. Not until we make.
Okay, but didn't we send the county and you just said that we emailed them a version?
They've seen the current version. Yes.
Okay, so it is okay. Matthew's question, you started to say we can't do that. You're correct, Matthew. We already did that. We already have shared with them the latest version. So what's wrong with sharing that with Caltrans and printing out a copy so that they could see it as well?
My understanding was with Matthew was asking us for additional design work. I wouldn't want to do any additional design work relating to the overall park without the BRE. We don't want to get to the master plan stage, but the county has already seen the current plan.
Yeah, that's fine.
What I'm saying.
And that's all I'm saying is I think that makes it, then let's send that plan as well to Caltrans, both via email and a hard copy. And same thing, start that process just like we've been doing with the county, saying this is where we're at. We know you're busy. It would be great to have a point of contact that we could continue to, further this along as we go. And that's all I'm saying. I think any of these agencies.
We're agreeing with you.
Okay, so that's if Claudia. Okay, if we need to take a vote. Otherwise, it's I would.
There's we're going to prosecute the project as efficiently as possible and get everyone involved as early as possible, because that's kind of what makes a successful project. So yeah.
And then is there any other agencies at the same time that we should start that same reach out to now?
Yeah, and that's those are the people. But I guess I'd go back to my original comment. Let me work with Bill on this, since he does this for a living and I'm surrounded by people who do it for a living, and I'll ask them what the best way to push this thing forward is, and see what they say.
So in addition to trying to meet with Caltrans, we are going to move forward on both biological assessment and maybe not immediately, but eventually having a master consultant for the CEQA process. And it sounds as if we also need a project engineer for grading and so forth. Did you find out if our project engineer was willing to do that?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk to John Rayner about this and pick his brain. I don't know if they do straight civil. They may or may not, but certainly there's plenty of people available for this stuff. So let me convene, now that we're kind of have a broad design. let me convene our people and talk to them out what the best way to expeditiously go forward with the stuff.
So let's have another, more specific, detailed discussion at our next board meeting.
Yeah, and we should have some answers, more direction by then. So,
All right. Well, I think that's good. We need to back up and also talk about the other two items on this agenda item. But I think we're in a good place on all of this. Thank you, Tom. I know you're on vacation.
Thank you. I'm losing sunlight too, so I'm glad this is working out the way it is.
Thank
you,
you,
everybody.
Okay.
all right,
Thanks,
thanks,
Tom.
Tom.
And I guess Chuck is going to come back at our next meeting with some discussion of finance options, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, I spoke with the firm yesterday or the day before, and they're going to give me early pricing, and then we should have something firmed up maybe in a couple weeks.
We are going to, the consensus I think on the board was that we would have a special board meeting for sort of taking the input from the public, open to the public meeting just to discuss the parks plan. And I thought it would be a good idea for us to get that on our calendars. The Parks Committee, thank you, Nancy. I see Nancy is here. Recommended that we wait until September because they want to be sure that parents with kids in school. I'm not sure these days with distance learning and everything, it makes that much difference, but I think we do want to give ample opportunity for this plan to have lots of public review. I would say we've gotten some interesting comments, but not very many. I'm kind of surprised. But the sign is going to go up shortly. Thank you to the fire station, which is donated their sign they had up there. They're going to put up that sign for us on the Burnham Strip. Claudia can talk about that process in a minute when it's her report. What is everybody's thinking about when we would do this, our special board meeting? It'd be nice to get the date set. Anyone have any thoughts on timing of that?
Well, do we want to do that with the plans in the state that we have them now? Or should we do the biological and then at least have Tom tell us what that means for what impacts it has on design possibilities?
It's hard to see what a biological assessment is going to come up with on that site because there's really not much there except invasive plants and so forth.
There's wetlands.
Yeah.
We own wetlands. That's always a big deal. And what we need to be able to say is we have plans here to look at them, no impacts to wetlands or wetland vegetation.
Well, they're talking about moving the wetlands, so that's an issue.
Yes.
I think we could probably get the biological assessment done quickly enough that we could think about a meeting in September.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't want to wait another month to set the date. I feel like if we wait another month, I mean, is there anyone objecting to sort of coming up with some tentative date at this point?
No, I mean, September seems reasonable. I mean, I think that, speaking for myself as a parent, a lot of my attention is on what school is going to look like in the fall. So when September rolls around, we'll be in whatever the new normal is for September, at least. So people may have a little bit more time to look at this and think about it. So, I mean, I don't think sooner than September makes sense, but I'm not opposed to September if we think we can.
What about, I'm just throwing something there. What about September 24th, which is a Thursday? We meet on Thursdays. It's the week after our board meeting. And that would give us 3 weeks to make any further changes and react or
That's the date I was going to propose, actually. So, yeah, I think that should work.
Okay, any feedback on that? Does that work for people?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with that date.
Right. Set the date.
Are we talking about using our meeting room?
Well, it'll be a Zoom meeting. We're not going to be able,
Oh, that's right. I guess we're going to be doing this for another year.
yeah.
Yeah, get used to it.
Yeah. All right, well, we can start having people put that on their calendar. Everybody is okay with that date? Is there anyone who has a problem with that date?
No.
People here? All right, great. All right, well, I'm,
Will an invitation be sent out?
yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak on this item? I know that we're going to get reports on the, this will come up on Parks and Recreation activities as well. Anyone have anything else they want to say on this? I think we made some progress getting this moving. Okay, so.
Do you want to talk about the snail issue?
Oh, yeah, shoot. Okay. As if life wasn't complicated enough. We have been notified by the Agriculture Department that we have an infestation of the white garden snail, which is actually one of the worst agricultural pests around. It's subject to eradication and control measures under the Agriculture Department, and someone from the Agriculture Department met on site with myself, Claudia, and Cleo Patra from the Resource Conservation District, and we talked about it. They strongly suggested that we have a program to remove these snails. We're talking with the RCD. We decided on a 3-month abatement plan. They're mostly next to the parking lot, and if anyone's curious, yesterday I picked off probably close to 100. Here are the ones I got today. They're really small. You see them? They're white, and they like to climb up the various plants. The first step, and this is something that we can either use our own people who've been doing the mowing or hire a specialized company, but they would like us to pretty much mow down everything except the willows around the riparian area, which is too bad that because there's some really nice native Hooker's evening primrose in there, even some bee plant. But this is a potentially very invasive snail. Its numbers can evidently grow exponentially once they end up in the site. It's also over in the Harbor District property, and they are facing the same requirements. So
how about the fire district? Their property?
I don't think so.
And Caltrans?
So there may be some over toward the road, but they think it's people parking in the lot, and then the snails come off the bottom of the trucks and then go over to the vegetation. And we're very localized in one area.
Barbara, excuse me for a minute. John did say that the Harbor District has a major infestation as well, and they would like to take a torch to it, and which the Ag Department is not encouraging.
Literally a torch?
Well, that was his euphemism.
Yeah, Claudia is right. I bicycle along the trail, and if you go on the west side of the Coast Side Trail from the boat ramp to the jetty, it's carnage. It's just it's a white strip of snails that have been walked on and biked on, and yeah, they're there all over the place.
Other places have succeeded in eliminating them. It can be done. They're a real problem in Florida, evidently. So the idea is it's the proposal that she's put together. It's not very expensive, so we thought we would see if Chuck can take this, make it happen, authorize it. But I wanted to let you know it is also carries a dangerous pest. It carries what is it? It's
Parasite.
rat lungworm.
Yeah, rat lungworm. Though the agriculture department said that none of the ones here have been tested, so they don't know if they carry it. They don't all carry it. So the idea is we would mow most of the vegetation down around the stream. They like to climb, so we would put tall sticks, essentially set in the ground. It's either that or burying traps of liquid, and they would come up in these sticks, and then someone would have to go visit regularly and pick them off and seal them up and get rid of them. So this is a new thing that's happening on our property that we need to deal with.
Well, so we need to coordinate with the neighboring properties to get this done in the same short time period.
It's very small. The infestation right now is in an area about maybe 10 feet by 3 or 4 feet. They don't travel far. So they find an area and then they just in population in that area.
Well, they're on both sides of Obispo already, and they're out on Caltrans property, and they drove over here.
Now, what do you mean they're on both sides of? Oh, I see. Over on the harbor property. Yeah.
Right.
Which may have come from a different source. Evidently, they're traveling on people's vehicles.
Mhm.
So,
And we did not see any on the Caltrans property.
yeah. And I looked on the other
Good.
side today of the north side of the drainage, and I didn't find any there either. So, anyway, the RCD is estimating it will only cost a couple $1,000s to do the work to set up an abatement program. And so unless anyone has any objection to this, I think we should work with Claudia and Chuck and so forth to make this happen. But I wanted also the community to know, because we are going to have to post signs about what we're doing.
Let's authorize it now.
Okay, everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Moving on. It's always a surprise, isn't it? Next agenda item. Report on parks and recreation activities. Who's going first, Claudia or Nancy?
Claudia, do you want to do the update on the outreach? Postcards and sign?
I'll unmute. So we've been working with Marty Souter, who is the graphic designer, and the postcard has been printed. We're waiting on the printer to continue the process, and what they will not print the labels for mailing until the entire batch has been printed of the postcards. And the postcards are now printed, and so they should be checking the list, which is what they do to ensure there are no duplicates. And either tomorrow or Monday, everything will be labeled and posted. They send a check or a request for a check to Marty. She pays them, and it goes out, and there's no turnaround time involved in that. So we're in good stead there. In terms of the sign for Burnham Park, as Barbara mentioned, the builder for the, I tracked down the builder through the architect and the contractor, and he has actually saved the sign. And he turned up when Barbara and Cleo and I were and John were starting our invasive snail track. And he said, "Are you people? Are you officials?" And we said, "Well, yeah, kind of." And it turns out it's Tim Pound, who is Pond, who is the builder. And he had the sign. And so I chatted with him, told him where we wanted it. He volunteered to install it. And Marty is going to put the graphic design together for us. And based on what's on the postcard. She'll review it with Barbara and with me and Nancy to make sure everything is the way we want it. And so we should get that up before too long. In terms of outreach, not outreach, but another sign issue is Marty's going to work on the invasive snail problem or signage. And all we need to do is get her the information of what we want it to say exactly. And she's going to do the same type of design and push in the ground kind of sign that she did that for us originally that had the herons on them. So unless somebody wants a different type of sign, that's the one that she's developing, and it will have a warning about what it is and what our mitigation steps will be.
We should probably mention, because where we left the last board meeting, we were talking about the sign down on Portola and a way to get comments in. Subsequent to that, when it became clear the sign was going to take a little time, Claudia, Barbara and I met and conceived of sending the postcard to all 2,000 households. So I didn't think most of the board had heard about the postcard yet, but it should be arriving sometime early next week in everybody's homes.
Great. And the classes, Claudia, were you going to report on the classes?
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention, Michelle has done a really nice job for us through COSIDE Buzz, putting word out for what we're doing, not only with the workshops, but with, the BP project in general. The workshops that one started this week, and it's for children. We're outdoors. It took quite a bit to get it started between permits and rangers and Nick Calderon, but I got it all worked out. We started with a rug hooking class, and I've got some photos that I'm going to post and get them going on our website. And next week we've got an embroidery class, and these kids are just so happy to be outside and to be doing something creative. It's just heartwarming, just absolutely heartwarming. So, and I also posted that with the Half Moon Bay Review, and so hopefully their editor will, Clay will put something about our workshops in the mail, or in the newspaper rather, the online newspaper. That's it.
Okay, I'll come back to outreach. While we were waiting for the postcard to be done, I did do a posting about the preliminary plan on Nextdoor, directing them to the website. Thanks to the guys at Dudek, we've got the graphic, some information about the graphic, and links to the K&K report, the K&K slides, and a video of Tom's presentation to the board are all up on the website. Some of it's on the homepage, all of it is on the parks page. And so I did a Nextdoor posting. We got a number of nice comments on Nextdoor, and we set up a special email for people to send comments to. That email is forwarding to Claudia, myself, Barbara, and David. And we've gotten 14 comments so far. I did a little tabulation. Seven of them used the word love. Another 3 used the word excited. Generally, very positive feedback so far. A few ideas here and there from that venue. And I've just, because the postcards aren't coming out till next week, I just an hour or so ago popped it up again on Nextdoor, asking for more comments. And I'll do that kind of every week. Just people see it on Nextdoor, they'll get the postcard, they'll see the sign, trying to drive a significant number of comments coming in with the opportunity to see all the detail that's there available on the website. The other ideas that came from PACS, PAC met on July 6th. There's some specific feedback from PAC. It's in your agenda memo and you can read it, so I won't read it to you. Definitely a lot of votes for swings. and a couple of safety issues raised with a concern about having bikes and skateboards and walkers and dog walkers all on the same path, and wondering if we could separate those, and a concern Pat raised about the crossroads in the middle, the two main paths cross in the middle of the active area, where the picnic area and the playground and the basketball and the lawn. And he had a concern about bicycles whizzing through, skateboards whizzing through, joggers running through in that area where you may have a lot of little kids running around. So I thought that was an important note. The for public outreach, the only additional ideas from PAC were to circulate the postcard details to the local school population. I'll contact somebody from the El Granada School PTO to see if they can circulate it to the postcard information to the PTO. You know, they should get it at home. If they don't, then it's just another opportunity. There was a suggestion, I think this came from Michelle, that the GCSD should do one or more live meetings, Zoom meetings, perhaps hosted by a board member, inviting people to come and talk through their comments. She referenced the MWSD meeting, which, as you know, went on for hours, but I think this one would not be so rigorous as their fee increase meeting. We did have 2 people come to the PAC who had strong views and were not in favor of the plan. Those are the only 2 views I've heard that were strong views not in favor of the plan. They were quite far apart in what they wanted to see. One wanted to see it totally restored to coastal terrace plain and nothing on it, and the other wanted it to be a fully green lawn like Marina Green, so irrigated, not native plants and so on. So we had the full range of views there, but those are the only negative views I've seen. So one idea, go to the school population. Second idea, have one or more board members do a couple more live meetings for people to talk through their thoughts. And the third was, as Barbara mentioned, to have the special meeting of the board a little later. So just put more efforts to making sure we reach people with school-age children. Really from the PAC meeting, that was one of the major purpose of our meeting, was to talk more about outreach and to just get the initial feedback from PAC. But the initial feedback was just very positive, that the design does really reflect well the diversity of what we heard in the community outreach and reflects well the demographics of our population, which is nearly 1,000 kids, significant senior population, but also a very robust active recreation population.
All right.
We are not where we initially had on our schedule a meeting in August. We've put that off. We're waiting for the what now September 24th date. So we'll aim to meet a couple weeks before that date to kind of coalesce and come up basically with a summary of PAC recommendations for revisions based on all the community feedback that we get, just to feedback to the board, like as we did after the October meeting.
Great. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Questions?
Nope.
Exciting things happening with Burnham Park. Right. So moving on to item number 4, which is a public hearing, consideration of a resolution adopting the sewer service charge and delinquent garbage account reports and authorizing the collection of in the FY 2020-21 San Mateo County tax roll. I'd like to open the public hearing for public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? Are there any board members who wish to speak to this item? I close the public hearing first. Let me close the public hearing. Hearing no public comments. Would any board members like to speak to this item? Would someone like to make a motion to approve the resolution as presented? Come on, guys. Somebody.
Everybody's muted.
Is reviewing the resolution. I move to adopt the resolution as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, good. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Dye,
Yes.
Director Seaton,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Yes.
Director Sukamel,
Yes.
and Director Blanchard. Jim, you got to unmute.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right, motion on motion of Director Sukamel, seconded by Director Clark. Motion passes 5-0.
Moving to consideration of policy and resolution for the statewide November 3rd, 2020 general election. Is there a staff report on this? Do you want to discuss this?
This is something we do every 2 years for the election, and Delia's put this together. And your board basically has 3 broad decisions to make. The first decision is whether you want the candidates to be limited to 200 words in their statement or 400 words. The second decision is who pays the cost of the candidate's statement, the district or the candidate. And the third decision, or it's actually an action, to approve the resolution calling for an election to be held on November 3rd for the election of 2 members of the district governing board. So the first 2 are just discretionary, and the third one is something you have to do. If you want to
And
hold
what
it.
has past practice been?
200
Delia, do you-
words.
What, Matthew, you remember?
It's, we've been doing 200 words and the candidate pays for their own statement.
Okay.
And I would, the only feedback I would say is normally I'm all for saving money, you know, but when it comes to hundreds and thousands of dollars getting shelled out and then potentially $200 maybe that somebody from a low income community that maybe that is the holding them back, I would say the cost to potentially have more candidates come into the race. To me, if that's something that's on the table, I think that, you know, I think it only benefits getting a greater pool of people. And that's one of the targets that everyone's trying to do at a local level. So I would say that maybe in terms of considering to pay for that and even opening up the more words gives, you know, just more transparency in terms of getting that out there. Those would be my only 2 feedback that regardless of what's been done in the past, I would just say maybe we consider those things and, you know, and look at maybe the cost of $200. I know, you know, when so many other things just get spent, I think whatever it is, the cost of the candidate statement, I think it was 200 to 400, somewhere around there. I would say that yeah, that could go a long way in getting maybe one more candidate to run that otherwise wouldn't.
I think that's a valid point. I could support that. And I don't know, it seems like paring things down to 200 words is a good exercise in setting priorities. But I agree with you about the, I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think that's a good point that perhaps someone might not have the funding to come up with. How much is the cost?
Delia, do you know?
For the candidate statement, I have no idea. I know that the district does incur costs for the election, usually close to about $9,000 to $10,000, and that is without the candidate statements.
Yeah, but as I remember it down here, it's I think it's somewhere near what David said, a couple $100 or something.
I think the last time I submitted one, it was the county wanted $231.
Okay.
That sounds right.
All right, I'd support paying the cost of the statement. I agree with David on that. Does anyone have any thoughts on the 200 words versus 400 words? I don't feel strongly one way or the other either. Anyone else have an opinion?
I mean, I'd like to think people read my candidate statement, but I'm realistic about that. I mean, I don't know that I see a lot of value in making a 400-word statement versus 200. So I guess I'd be inclined to keep it at the 200 words. Plenty for the scope of our engagement. And then I think David's point about covering the candidate fees to open up a broader pool of candidates potentially is a good thought. So I'd be fine with keeping it at 200 and then covering the statement costs.
All right. Anyone else have an opinion here?
Well, if nobody runs besides just last time I think Matthew and I ran and there were no they actually didn't run the candidate statement, did they? Because there's only 2 of us. Is that right, Matthew?
Right.
If that
Right.
happens, it happens.
It was never published.
And we got our checks back.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Well, if that happens, that happens. So anyone from the public want to speak to this? Nancy? You're muted.
Dave Olson did a posting on Nextdoor about the MCC openings with a link to the county elections website, which is kind of their how-to website. And perhaps GCSD would think about just to make sure that people know about the openings and for transparency, put a similar posting out just to try to generate candidates. There are about 26, I think I read in the paper, 26 such positions open on the coast side alone in this election.
Great. Well, Eric, you seem to have an opinion here. You want to make a motion?
What am I moving for here?
So what your motion, based on your previous comments, your motion would be to direct the candidate statements to be 200 words, not 400, and have the cost of the candidate statement be paid by the district.
Oh, I see. I'm looking more closely at the resolution now. I see it's filled in. Sure, I can do that. I move that we approve a resolution getting the candidate statements to 200 words, and that the GCSD will cover the cost of
And approve the resolution calling for the election.
and approve the resolution.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and second. I'll do a roll call vote. Director Dye,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Sukamel,
Aye.
Director Blanchard,
Aye.
and Director Seaton.
Aye.
Okay, on motion of Director Sukamel, seconded by Director Clark, motion passes 5-0.
And David,
Well,
I think that was a really good point you made. David, I'm glad we made that change. Thanks to you.
Yeah, that was a good point. We'll have to figure out how this works now. I've never had the statement cost covered, so we'll figure out hopefully from the county whether we pay them and the candidate pays the county and then gets reimbursed by the district, or the district pays it a different check for every candidate.
I think it's likely that the county will bill us.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, moving on to item number 6, approval of resolution directing making of amended non-contingent assessments, certain such reassessments under resolution of intention number 2003-008, sewage treatment facility improvements integrated financing district. Do we have
Okay,
one
that's a mouthful.
with the staff report?
Yeah, and that's pretty straightforward. We do this every year. Basically, if people do lot lines adjustments, split parcels, combined parcels, we have to reapportion those parcels that are within the assessment district. So it's ministerial in nature.
Anyone want to speak
So
to?
we approve the resolution as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
All right, roll call, please.
Okay, Director Dye,
Yes.
Director Seaton,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Yes.
Director Sukamel, and Director Blanchard.
Aye. Yes.
Okay, on motion of Director Clark, second by Director Sukamel, motion passes 5-0. And I want to also I want to just alert your board concerning the assessment district. We had a good call with Cameron Wiest, who is the special bond counsel we hired to look through the assessment district. As most of you know, we're winding that down in 2022. So it looks like the levy we thought we were going to have to levy this year most likely won't be levied. There's too many levies, but because we've got a certain amount of money in the assessment district funds, and that should be enough to pay off the last 2 years of bond payments, interest and principal. So we're working through that right now. It's a pretty complicated process, as you can imagine, winding these things down. So we're working with Cameron Wiest, our consultant Tausig, and Delia's knee deep in this stuff. Doing a great job. So we're trying to figure that out. So that's just for your information.
So these are the people who are paying the extra assessment.
Yeah, they're paying what we call the non-contingent assessment each year, $550, which gets placed on their, roughly $550, which gets placed on their property tax rolls for billing.
And that's the people who moved in to new housing after
That's any parcel that's in the assessment district that didn't have, broadly speaking, a house built upon it and sewer service at the time of the assessment district formation in 96 or 4.
And it's about to wind down, so they'll be done.
Yeah.
That will make people happy.
Yes, it should.
Okay. Here we are, an agency that's eliminating charges. That's a good thing. All right. Any other comments on that? Moving on to consideration of Sewer Authority Mid-Coastside Report. The last SAM meeting was pretty non-controversial. They just a couple, they're doing some repairs, continuing repairs to SAM to replace items that need work. They seem to be on top of those things. The Amoresco Energy Efficiency Project is moving forward, which is an exciting thing they're doing in partner with a company that does this, that will essentially do some energy efficiency projects at SAM at no cost to SAM, or at minimal cost. So that's interesting to see it moving forward. I think that's about all that went on at the last meeting.
I have a question about the it's from the June 22nd meeting. Number 4, regular business. The first 2 paragraphs. It's numbered page 6. It says and this was voted on and passed 8-0 to for a contract with Calcon Systems, and it's expressed as request extending a 4 one-year renewable contract. I thought that was a typo, but it's at the bottom of that same paragraph in the same form. Does that mean a 4-year contract that's annually renewable? Is that what that's supposed to mean?
I believe so.
Okay, that's what I thought, but it's really, the wording is really strange. All right, thanks.
I'll have to check on that, because I didn't on contract was for 4 years. Calcon does electrical work at the plant.
I wonder if they meant to say a 4th one-year renewable contract.
Yeah.
They dropped a TH.
Okay, check that and get back to you. How about that? All right, moving on. Where am I? Wrong paper. Consent agenda approves June 18th, 2020 special and regular. Oh, does anyone want to pull anything off the consent agenda? Okay, we're approving the June 18th, 2020 special and regular meeting minutes, approved July 2020 warrants, approved May 2020 financial statements, and approved the assessment district distribution number 1-20/21. Someone want to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second, sorry.
All right. Any
Okay.
discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Director Dye,
Yes.
Director Seaton, Director Clark,
Yes.
Director Sukamel,
Yes.
Director Blanchard.
Yes.
All right, a motion to Director Clark, second to Director Sukamel. Motion passes 5-0.
And then committee reports. Do we have a report from anyone on seminars, conferences, or committees? Nope. All right, moving on. Attorney's report.
No report.
Okay. General manager's report.
Probably the only thing I have to report is we got a request from the RCD. They are cleaning out, and maybe Delia knows better where this is. Delia, you know where the storm drain is they're cleaning out?
It's somewhere in Princeton near Barbara's Fish Shop, I believe. I'm not
Okay,
sure
so-
exactly.
Yeah, so they've got a storm drain that's impacted by fats, oils, and grease. I don't know how, but they've got one. So they've hired a contractor to clean that out. And as part of that cleaning process, they're going to block up the storm drain upstream of the area they're cleaning. And they would like to pump that through our sewer system. So we've checked with Sam to make sure it doesn't have any impact on their plant, which it shouldn't. We've checked with John Rayner, our district engineer, and he doesn't think it's an issue. They're looking at doing something like 20 to 24,000 gallons a day for 2 weeks. So that will increase our flows for those 2 weeks. We average about, I'm going to say 280,000 gallons a day at this time of year. So maybe a little more because COVID, people are staying home. So, maybe 7% of our flow for 2 weeks. So just wanted your board to be aware of that.
So they're gonna pump it right into the IPS?
They're going to pump it right into the IPS. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, go ahead.
So are they pumping the natural flow, or are they putting water into this and then pumping it into the?
Well, they're going to, and I can circulate, or Delia can circulate the email from them, but I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head, Barbara. I can't remember it off the top of my head though. So they're taking, I think, as I understood it, they're blocking the flow, and the flow is pretty continual because it must be a lot of irrigation runoff and whatnot. So.
Yeah, because it does all those, that catches all that stuff over by the airport and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Well, the RCD has been working on trying to improve the water quality. That's one reason they asked us to modify the drainages on the strip, because they're trying to figure out different ways to improve water quality into the harbor.
Yeah, and so this will increase our flows, like I said, which will have a somewhat minor effect on our costs because we do pay on flow base. But I think since this is a public, health benefit, I think it's fine.
Says, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Says the project will remove a deposit of fat, oils, and grease from the St. Augustine line, which I believe is a creek. And before it discharges into Pillar Point Harbor. That's basically what he said.
That's known locally as Deer Creek, so it's not coming from the airport.
Calling it St. Augustine Creek, right?
St. Augustine goes up, up Paloma. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. Interesting. Well, I'd like to hear the results of that. It's nice that we're helping out in a project that's good for the environment.
I'd like to know how it could take 2 weeks.
Government.
And what's happening with the Medio Creek? What's happening with the Medio Creek situation?
John is still processing. That's why I said I think we have WRA on board. John is still processing the environmental work. and coordinating with state parks, which was slow before, and as you can imagine, is now even slower because it's difficult to get a hold of these people. But the work, the environmental work, is still moving forward.
Are they doing a mitigated negative declaration?
They had to redo we did MND
Yeah.
back 10 years ago when we did the first phase of the project. So Half Moon Bay has asked us to just update that and to do a new biological assessment, I believe. So, but you know, the broad basics of it can stand. So that's the process we're in now.
Okay, thank you. All right, administrative staff report.
The only additional thing I'd like to mention is I got a call today from the truck driver who's going to be delivering the trash cans. They will be received tomorrow. And then I will try and get them placed as soon as possible, hopefully next week.
Just a little update of what's happening with those, Delia, because I know you've done a ton of good work on that.
I'm sorry, Barbara, it's hard to understand. Did you say you wanted an update on the trash cans?
Yes, quick summary of what's happening with them.
Oh, well, I ordered 2 new containers, essentially. They're 60-gallon, and one will be placed at Surfers Beach next to the existing 30-gallon can. And if we have room, the other one will be placed in Miramar. I'm hoping that we can do this without additional permits from the city or county because we're just adding 2 existing cans. I'm not sure if we have the room to put one in Miramar. If not, I was thinking we could put the extra one farther down on the beach, above Surfers Beach somewhere, or we could find another place to utilize it. But hopefully these will be, you know, some nice looking, not too obtrusive, and provide enough you know, waste area for people after the weekend, so we don't have a lot of overflow. So that's the goal. And I essentially will need to hire someone with a forklift to place them for us. They're going to be delivered to the pumping station, and they will sit there temporarily until I can get them permanently placed.
Delia, where is our can in Miramar, the existing one?
The existing can, and one that someone keeps putting out there as well, is right at the corner of Magellan before you turn onto the road that runs right in front of the restaurant there. It's by the house with the rocks.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that was ours.
Yeah, well, we have an actual can there, and then someone has been putting a second one out because that area gets a lot of foot traffic. The problem is there's not a lot of room to really put a can there. We have cans that are further down the road, but they don't, you know, see as much traffic, so they're not really being utilized. It's really important on the placement. The problem is we don't really have a good place to put a can there. So that's what we're looking at. I just have to go out there and do some measurements and see if it's going to work or not. I don't know yet.
So just as a note, on Murata right there are people who are Airbnb-ing, and they put their garbage bags in that receptacle right there.
Well, if you know the address of the place where they're staying, we have mandatory garbage collection in our ordinance code, and so the owner of the home should be signed up to have garbage service with Recology.
So
and,
Selena lives right, and I know you've talked to her because she has told me you talked to her, and she lives right across the garbage can. And she caught this guy coming out, putting his garbage in the garbage can, and he lived like 2 doors down. It's like, oh, I don't need to buy any garbage, you know, fees or anything like that because I can put my garbage right here. So that's what you're going up against. And that's the same thing at Surfers Beach. So when you add more garbage, you're giving everybody a free garbage can.
Right, I know. The gentleman that you're referring to has been signed up with Recology. I know that when I got the call from the neighbor, Chris Porter, the general manager of Recology, sent a letter to the homeowner and told him that he would be signed up for mandatory garbage collection. So that problem has been.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'll say, you know, we've had this discussion, obviously, Michelle, and we've talked about removing the cans, and for now we're keeping the cans and seeing if this works. But Chris Porter's all over it. Nothing pisses Chris off more than people dumping garbage for free. So
I hear you.
Especially people have dumped, I guess recently, an entire bag of dirty diapers and
Yes.
a whole bunch of kitty litter, which is very heavy and obnoxious.
Right.
But the thing is, the problem is they're all right next to the ocean, and we don't want things blowing into the ocean. And so at this, I think we decided that the best solution is to go ahead and try for better trash cans and see if we can deal with it.
So I'm working with the Pacific Coalition, and we're all about the pack it out movement.
Right.
And Adam Eisen, totally in that. We should not be paying for their garbage. So
Actually,
that's another idea about signage and, you know, process.
I would like to,
yeah.
don't mind, I have put a pack it in, pack it out, and a keep our beach clean sign, 2 signs I posted on the 4x4s on the stairs before you go down at Surfers Beach. So I have added signs there. I think that it's pretty much been proven if you go on next door that signs do not work. There was a picture that someone posted over the weekend where there was a huge sign that the city of Half Moon Bay had put out that said pack it in, pack it out, and there were still gobs of trash outside of the full can that people had left. So it doesn't matter what kind of signage you put, people will leave their garbage. And I have worked with the Pacific Coalition as well. Their preference was that we add additional cans at Surfers Beach. We were going to go with the other approach, which would be to remove the cans. However, what I started thinking about was that we really have no means of monitoring whether or not removing the cans was a better, you know, if we did it, there was an improvement or not, and we would need the help of the coalition in order to try and determine that. And it just didn't seem reasonable to try to string it along for another several months in order to try and monitor whether removing the cans would help or not. So in the meantime, I went ahead and ordered the new cans, and again, hopefully they will be sufficient to handle the flow of people and trash for, you know, our busy weekends and warm summer days. And if not, then possibly we can work out something to monitor if we do take them away and see if that works. But I think we're going to really have a trash problem no matter what. It seems like we damned if you damned if you do and damned if you don't. Either way you go, people are going to complain. But the most important thing is to keep the trash off the beaches and out of the ocean. So we're doing the best we can to try and curtail that.
Nice
I
job.
went down and picked up trash, I don't know, a week ago, off the strip, and because someone had sent us an email, I think, on our website about complaining about the trash on Nextdoor. So I went in, I picked up 8 small bags of trash, and including, you know, 2 that people had just left full bags of trash on the side of the road in various places. So, you know, it's pretty hard. And then when I was down picking snails, or no, I don't know, I was down there for something, and there were these people who had a big, you know, all their stuff from their picnic. And I said to him, could you possibly take that home, please? Because look, the trash can's already full. He looked at me so shocked at the very idea, but they did take it home. So at least that, or they left it somewhere else. So I don't know. We'll try to solve this. I don't know that we're going to make people behave properly.
And next month, Barbara, we're going to have an agenda item on your glamorous life. Okay.
Yeah. And the irony here is that if you put up those pack it out signs, that's where they leave the trash.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. We have to have trash monitors down there or something. I don't know, on busy days. Anyway, moving on. Engineers report.
I've got nothing further.
Okay, further agenda items?
Actually, I'd like to see, don't have an agenda item, but I'm changing my email.
Okay.
What's the best way to change my email?
Just send me and Delia your new email, and
Okay.
we'll put it in the process.
Very good. The two of you, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Chuck, what's the best way to get my email received from Dudek?
I've had 2 rounds of that, Matthew. I'll start round 3.
Okay.
I thought we had a solution on round 2 and it didn't work. So I'm still the only one blocked, or are you still getting everybody else's?
Yes.
Okay. That just might show good taste. So
Anything else that we need to discuss tonight?
No.
Right. I guess I don't. Do you really need a motion to adjourn? I thought you didn't need a motion to adjourn.
no, actually,
No.
on this you can just gavel it.
And this meeting is adjourned.
Okay,
Thank
thank you,
Good
Barbara.
night, everyone.
Thanks,
Good night.
everybody.
Yeah, talk to you soon.